Antarctica. Just ice, penguins, and nothing to see here. At least, that's what they want you to think. But the deeper you dig, the stranger it gets. So before we pull back this frozen curtain, hit that subscribe button, because they might not want you to hear the rest of this. They say Antarctica is the last untouched wilderness on Earth, an endless sheet of ice stretching over 14 million square kilometers, frozen for millions of years, far from the noise of human civilization. But beneath that silence lies a truth we're not supposed to see. From the moment you set foot here, it feels different.
This is a legitimate satellite image of a very large hole in the mountain range.
Not just because of the cold that bites through layers of insulated gear, but because of the rules, the restrictions, the invisible lines you're warned not to cross. Entire regions of this continent are marked as off-limits, guarded by international agreements, military patrols, and in some cases, armed enforcement. For a place we're told is just ice and penguins, the secrecy is unsettling. For centuries, explorers have been drawn to this place, driven by curiosity, science, or the hope of making history. But time and again, the same pattern emerges. Journeys cut short, missions halted, reports classified. Some expeditions return with strange stories, instruments going haywire, maps that don't match reality, and shapes glimpsed in the distance that disappear before anyone can get closer. Others never return at all. Even from above, Antarctica resists exposure. Satellite imagery has captured what look like massive geometric structures, dark entrances in the ice, and even formations resembling ancient pyramids. These images vanish or are blurred without explanation, leaving only a trail of speculation in their place. Scientists who have worked here often speak in cautious, measured words, avoiding certain topics as if afraid to say too much. The deeper you dig into the history of this continent, the stranger it becomes. Why is it that rival nations, who can barely agree on anything, have been united for decades in strictly controlling access to this frozen land? Why do we hear almost nothing about the vast regions no one is allowed to visit? And why does every official answer sound like it's been rehearsed 1,000 times? Antarctica is not just another corner of the globe. It's a locked room at the edge of the world. Something is here, buried beneath the ice and the politics, hidden from public view for generations. And the closer you get to uncovering it, the more the walls of secrecy seem to close in. In the coming moments, we're going to follow the trail through classified agreements, abandoned expeditions, and the whispers of hidden civilizations to see why this frozen curtain has been kept in place for so long, and what could happen if it's ever pulled back. In 1959, 12 nations, including the United States, the Soviet Union, and the United Kingdom, signed an agreement known as the Antarctic Treaty system. On the surface, it seemed noble. Antarctica would be preserved for peaceful purposes only, dedicated to scientific research, free of military bases and nuclear testing. Over time, more than 50 countries joined, creating what looks like one of the greatest examples of global cooperation in history. But here's the part that raises eyebrows. This unity exists in a world where nations compete fiercely for resources, territory, and power. Yet when it comes to Antarctica, rivals who clashed during the Cold War and still clash today have somehow agreed to keep strict, coordinated control over who gets in and what they can do. It's as if the usual rules of geopolitics don't apply here. The treaty sets rigid boundaries on human activity. Large parts of the continent are designated as protected zones, where entry is strictly prohibited without special permits that are nearly impossible for an ordinary person to obtain. Even scientific teams face tight restrictions on where they can travel and what they can study. Entire regions are essentially invisible to the outside world, with no independent eyes to verify what's really there. While the treaty bans military activity, that doesn't mean Antarctica is free of a military presence. Various nations maintain heavily equipped research stations, many with infrastructure and capabilities that go far beyond what's needed for science alone. Aircraft land on hidden runways, Cargo shipments arrive under heavy security, and there are reports of patrols guarding certain sectors against unauthorized approach. If Antarctica is just an icy wasteland, why all the secrecy? Why maintain a coordinated system that keeps both journalists and independent researchers away from entire swathes of land? And why does the political silence run so deep, even when other treaties around the world are openly debated and challenged? Some argue it's simply to protect the fragile environment from human exploitation. Others suggest it's to prevent a scramble for resources, oil, minerals, and freshwater reserves that could spark conflict if opened for competition. But the consistency of this global silence feels unnatural. In a fractured world, Antarctica is the one subject where major powers speak with one voice, and that voice says, "Stay away." And yet, the history of Antarctica tells us that staying away hasn't always been the plan. Decades before the treaty, expeditions from Germany, Britain, and the US hinted at something more valuable or more dangerous than ice. After those missions, policies shifted, borders on maps changed, and access tightened almost overnight. It's this sudden change that fuels suspicion. Something was found, something significant enough to make adversaries cooperate in silence for more than 60 years. The treaty is the lock, but to understand what it might be hiding, we have to look at those who dared to enter before the doors slammed shut and the strange things they encountered. Long before the Antarctic Treaty sealed the continent under layers of bureaucracy, explorers tried to map its frozen wilderness, and many paid the ultimate price. One of the earliest recorded tragedies was the British Antarctic expedition of 1910-1913, led by Robert Falcon Scott. His team reached the South Pole but never made it back. Officially, they were claimed by the cold, but surviving notes described sudden blizzards appearing out of nowhere, days earlier than weather predictions suggested. Conditions so violent they destroyed tents and froze supplies solid in minutes. Then there's Admiral Richard E. Byrd's Operation Highjump in 1946-47, one of the largest Antarctic expeditions ever mounted, involving 4,700 men, aircraft, and naval ships. Byrd returned early, refusing to talk publicly about certain parts of the mission. In later interviews, he hinted that Antarctica held threats beyond the understanding of modern nations, statements that were quickly downplayed by the media. Unexplained navigation problems are another recurring theme. Multiple expeditions have reported compass readings going haywire near certain coordinates, with magnetic north shifting erratically, making traditional navigation impossible. Scientists attribute this to localized magnetic anomalies, but curiously, these areas are often located deep inside the no-go zones set by the treaty. Weather here can change in an instant, far beyond what's expected even in extreme polar climates. Pilots have reported cloud walls forming as if out of thin air, trapping aircraft in sudden whiteouts. Some describe violent winds that seem to emerge from a single direction, blasting with hurricane force and then vanishing without a trace, as though turned on and off. In the satellite age, Antarctica's mysteries have only deepened. High-resolution imagery from agencies like NASA and the European Space Agency has, at times, revealed strange features. What look like massive entrances in the ice cliffs, symmetrical shapes resembling ancient ruins, and long, dark lines stretching for kilometers under the snow. These images often disappear or return in censored form, replaced with smooth, featureless white. When questioned, officials give vague answers about glacier shadows or compression artifacts. But for independent researchers, the patterns are too precise to be accidents. The sheer size of some structures, large enough to fit an aircraft, has sparked theories ranging from ancient civilizations to hidden military facilities. And then there are the disappearances. In 1965, an Argentine Navy transport plane vanished without sending a distress signal while flying over a restricted sector. Its wreckage was never found. Similar incidents involving smaller scientific teams have been reported, always in areas difficult to reach, and always followed by swift, quiet shutdowns of search efforts. These are not isolated accidents. They form a pattern, one that suggests Antarctica is more than a desolate expanse of ice. Something here disrupts instruments, swallows expeditions, and hides in plain sight, shielded by the cold and by those who control access. Next, we'll step deeper into the rabbit hole, to the whispers of structures under the ice that could rewrite history itself. Beneath Antarctica's crushing ice sheet lies a world few have ever seen, and according to some, it's a world built not entirely by nature. Over the last 2 decades, a wave of unusual satellite images has stirred global debate. Among the most striking are the pyramid formations photographed in the Ellsworth Mountains, structures with faces so symmetrical, angles so precise, that they resemble the pyramids of Giza more than random geological peaks. Geologists call them nunataks, mountain peaks poking through the ice, but the sharpness of their lines, especially in an environment eroded by wind for millions of years, continues to fuel suspicion. Leaked documents from alleged whistleblowers add another layer of intrigue. One former contractor claimed to have been part of a drilling operation in the 1990s that struck something unexpected: a vast, hollow chamber more than 2 miles below the surface. Inside, according to his account, were smooth walls, like concrete, and temperatures far warmer than the surrounding ice. He described being pulled off the project days later, his team scattered to unrelated assignments. Officially, the mission was inconclusive. Tunnels are another recurring theme. Some radar scans, quietly released through academic channels, show long linear voids running for dozens of kilometers beneath the ice, too straight and uniform to be natural crevasses. Theories range from lava tubes formed in a warmer geological past, to ancient passageways carved by a civilization lost to history, to modern underground bases built for purposes unknown. Several scientists who have worked in Antarctica have made curious, cautious remarks in interviews. Dr. Charles Bentley, a geophysicist who spent decades mapping the continent's subglacial terrain, once admitted that certain radar anomalies defied easy explanation. Another researcher, speaking anonymously, claimed that some areas of interest were off-limits even to senior science teams and guarded by what he described as international security personnel. The Lake Vostok mystery adds to the intrigue. This massive subglacial lake, hidden under more than 2 miles of ice, was sealed off from the outside world for at least 15 million years. When Russian scientists finally drilled into it in 2012, they announced they'd found unique microbial life, and then stopped releasing updates. Rumors swirled that they'd discovered something else: structures, artifacts, or even signs of intelligent design. But these claims remain unverified, locked away behind scientific non-disclosure agreements. Military interest also can't be ignored. While the Antarctic Treaty bans military activity, some research stations are heavily fortified and self-sustaining, with infrastructure capable of supporting operations far beyond science. Reports of heavy-lift aircraft and unmarked cargo containers arriving at night have only deepened speculation. Skeptics dismiss these claims as a mix of misidentified geology and conspiracy thinking, but the consistency of the stories, from pyramid-like peaks to cavernous underground halls, keeps the debate alive. If even one of these accounts is true, it could rewrite not only the history of Antarctica, but the history of human civilization itself. And this leads us to the most controversial idea of all: the possibility that these structures are not human in origin, but the remnants of something otherworldly. If the rumors are to be believed, Antarctica's frozen surface is just the outer shell of a far older world. Some researchers suggest that millions of years ago, before the continent drifted to the South Pole and froze, it was lush and temperate, capable of supporting an advanced civilization. Supporters of this theory point to ancient maps, like the Peary Race map of 1513, which appears to depict an ice-free Antarctic coastline centuries before it was officially discovered. How could early cartographers have drawn such accurate details without modern exploration, unless they were copying from far older sources? Then there's the Hollow Earth theory, which claims that vast openings in Antarctica lead to an inner realm, an ecosystem warmed by geothermal heat, hidden from the surface world. While mainstream science rejects the idea as impossible, persistent stories from explorers and pilots tell of massive ice caves and tunnels descending deep into the crust. Some accounts, including alleged logs from early 20th century expeditions, describe encounters with unusual lights, strange sounds echoing from below, and even sightings of structures far beneath the surface. More provocative still are the alien contact claims. Certain whistleblowers allege that Antarctica houses remnants of a non-human presence. Crashed craft, preserved bodies, or ancient technology buried for millennia under the ice. One story, circulating among conspiracy researchers, describes a multinational team uncovering a perfectly intact, disc-shaped object the size of a football field beneath the ice shelf, its surface resistant to all attempts at drilling or cutting. These theories are often dismissed as fantasy, yet they persist because so many elements remain unexplained. Why are there so many restricted areas in a place supposedly open for peaceful research? Why do some satellite images show anomalies that are later removed? And why have certain scientific discoveries from Antarctica been abruptly classified or left unreported? Even respected figures have added fuel to the fire. In 2016, astronaut Buzz Aldrin visited Antarctica, only to cut his trip short, later posting a cryptic message on social media referring to evil itself being located there. The post was quickly deleted, but not before it spread across the internet. The persistence of these stories, despite decades of official denials, suggests one of two possibilities. Either they're elaborate fictions kept alive by the human love of mystery, or there is, in fact, something extraordinary under Antarctica that governments are unwilling or unable to explain. And if there is something there, the question isn't just what it is, but why it's been kept hidden for so long. In our final section, we'll confront the possibility that some truths are simply too dangerous to reveal. From the moment the first explorers set foot on Antarctica, this continent has guarded its secrets with an icy resolve. We've traced the threads, lost expeditions, magnetic anomalies, sudden no-go zones, strange structures under the ice, and whispers of civilizations or entities that may have come long before us. Each piece alone is intriguing. Together they form a puzzle whose picture is deliberately obscured. The Antarctic Treaty stands as both a diplomatic achievement and a barrier. It prevents open conflict over the land, but it also ensures that what lies in certain regions remains beyond the reach of the public eye. Decades have passed, technology has advanced, and satellites now scan every inch of Earth. Yet the mysteries of this frozen realm remain just out of focus, as if someone is always adjusting the lens. We've seen evidence vanish from satellite maps. We've heard scientists speak in careful half-truths. We've read accounts, sometimes too detailed to dismiss, of structures that shouldn't exist and events that defy explanation. Are these coincidences, or is there an organized effort to keep the deeper truth frozen in place? Perhaps what lies beneath the ice is too disruptive to reveal. If a lost civilization exists there, it could rewrite human history and challenge the foundations of our understanding. If advanced technology, human or otherwise, has been preserved under the glaciers, it could upend global power structures overnight. And if something unknown, something alive, is still hidden in the dark beneath the continent, then perhaps secrecy is not just about control, but about containment. Antarctica is unlike any other place on Earth, a place where silence is enforced, where the borders are not lines on a map, but invisible walls of policy, guarded by nations that otherwise cannot agree on much. It is a locked vault at the bottom of the world. The question is, who holds the key? And why haven't they turned it? We may never get official answers, but history tells us that no secret can be kept forever. Ice melts, walls crack, and one day, perhaps by accident, the truth will break through. Until then, we're left with fragments, blurry images, classified files, and the testimony of those who claim to have seen what the rest of us cannot. So the mystery remains, suspended in time, buried under miles of ice. And as long as the frozen curtain stays closed, we're forced to wonder, is Antarctica's greatest secret simply too big or too dangerous to ever see the light of day?